Ecological succession is a series of changes in a community, and usually that's talking about mostly plants and not really the animals, in which new populations of organisms gradually replace existing ones. There are two main types of succession. The first is called primary succession. The second is called secondary succession. Let's look at primary succession first. Primary succession is where a new site is colonized by a community of organisms. So this is the first time that plants have ever grown in this area. It takes place on new rock, and new rock can come from two sources. It can come from the cooling of volcanic lava flow from a volcano, and it can come from glaciers. And as glaciers move through an area, they scrape all the soil away and they expose rock. So this is two of the places that primary succession can take place. Primary succession happens very slowly. It proceeds as smaller, faster-growing plant species. Usually those are things like lichens. They're replaced by slower-growing but more stable tree species. Primary succession ends in different climax communities in different parts of the world. So the types of plants that grow in that environment are going to depend on where in the world it is, what the climate is, and what the nutrition of the soil is. The climax community, that word, is a stable, mature community that undergoes little or no succession. So this is basically the end stage of succession. It's the point at which it stops changing. Okay, let's look at the second type of succession. This is secondary succession. It's a sequence of changes to a community that takes place when it's disturbed by a natural disaster or human actions. So you're looking at something that's caused a change in the community. It always takes place on existing soil, so there's no new rock this time, there's already soil there, and it happens more quickly than primary succession. Still pretty slow, but more quickly than the other. Some examples include fire, forest fires that can level portions of a forest community, and so as that community starts to grow back, starts with grasses, and slowly shrubs grow back, and finally trees. That's secondary succession. The second example is a farmer who plows his field. When he plows his field, he's basically starting fresh with a new community, and slowly the plants will begin to grow back. The disrupted area will go through a series of changes similar to primary succession, in which smaller, faster-growing plant species are gradually replaced by larger, more stable tree species. Here's a picture for you of what ecological succession looks like. You start out in the very beginning of time in this community with annual plants. These are little tiny plants, things like flowers and grasses. Slowly you get some perennial plants growing. These are plants that will come back year after year, and they're a little bit larger. And then slowly you get some shrubs growing, and then some softwood trees, things like pines, and finally your hardwood trees. And so eventually you'll have a full forest, and that's what we call the climax community.